This video is sponsored by none other than Lead Heroes, you guys. Lead Heroes has got you covered when it comes to telemarketed leads and virtual staffing. On the lead side, whether it be Medicare supplement leads, final expense leads, turning 65 leads, they just got something for everybody. They can also actually have you plug in with one of their virtual staff members on the staffing side to where you can pay by the hour for one of their trained and very well vetted staff members to help you out in your business in a virtual assistant format. Just because you watch this video, they're going to give you 10% off any order you make on their website. Link to the site can be found down in the description, so go ahead and check them out. Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Brindle here. I'm back with another video with somebody doing big things, somebody that I've known quite some time, a good friend. I have Mr. Algot.sorensen here with me today. A little bit of information about Al. Al is a professional and experienced sales trainer with over 30 years of experience in the sales industry. He started in sales in 1992. For those of you who didn't know, I was born in 1992. So he literally has my entire life of experience in the sales industry. And now he's working with an organization called Sandler Training that has, 60 years of experience in the sales training industry?
60 years and franchises all over the globe. You know, I go to trainings myself every week to try and sharpen the saw and get a little better. And we have people from Brazil, we have people from France and England, and I've met people from Australia and obviously all over North America. And so, yeah, it's a worldwide organization, and I'm with the franchise that's here in Salt Lake.
I love it. I love it. I thought an interesting place just to start off real briefly, and I know you have a presentation put together for us. We're going to deliver a lot of value to the audience here today. But I thought a fun place to start might be, how did we meet? How do we know each other? Little background for the audience.
Yeah, no problem. Well, Christian would probably best recognize me with one of these in my hand. So, Christian, I moved into the house next door to Christian and his dad and mom and his two brothers, and kind of on a fun circle, actually.
Yeah.
And Christian was younger. I didn't move here when you were born, so it was a little after that.
Yeah.
But I moved here when you were about a teenager, and we would play basketball. So we would play horse, and I would generally have like a large Diet Coke. That's what held up the cup. So I would just shoot one-handed with a Diet Coke in one hand and shooting shots with the other. And your dad and I and you would go out there and just shoot around and that kind of stuff. And sometimes Daryl from across the street would come over.
Yep. It was always a cup in one hand, shooting with one hand and the other, and then one leg up. And it's a different leg and one leg in the air. And
yeah, we had to be specific. It couldn't be just make a shot. You had to do some kind of off balance, think about it for a minute kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm such a big fan of sales training, psychological sales training, and I know that's a specialty of yours. And I think that it's one of those things where there's so many people today with all the different tools that are available, right? Whether it be marketing tools, automation tools, and it gets lost the importance of the ability to conduct yourself in a sales encounter, and be able to kind of handle a sales process from point A to point Z. And so many people don't get that. In my industry all the time, I hear all the time people saying, oh, the leads were no good. I'm like, well, we ordered a batch of those same leads last week and we did great with them. So it's just one of those things where I feel like it's needed. It's a necessity. And so I just wanted to, kind of spend some time highlighting you and your training today, and just kind of turn it over to you and kind of let you run with it.
Yeah, no problem. And I love that you said my leads were no good, or these are the bad ones. Takes me back to Glenn Gary, Glenn Russ, right? We got to have the good leads. We got to have the good ones, as if I have no ability to affect the outcome. Well, I think really what got me excited about Sandler is I was in 2016, I was managing a group of salespeople, and I knew why I could make it work, but I wasn't able to express it uniform enough, I guess, really, or systematically enough that they could say, oh, I can get that, and that I could help somebody really go. I would always say it takes longer for me to train people, but they'll be better when they get there.
Yeah.
And so we would go through some stuff, and it came to the point where, as I started going to Sandler stuff in 2016 to get better at this, because I wanted to improve myself, I noticed, I was like, oh, I love that vocabulary. I like how they say that. I like how they put this together. I was like, that's why I do this. But then as I saw it break out, it really helped me get, this is how I could explain it to somebody else.
Yeah.
So not only was it able to help me, but then if I had an assistant, or if I had a salesperson or 2 or 12 or 60, at one point I was over 60, right? How could I help them kind of get it so that if I wanted to step back, the machine still ran and I knew exactly where to look. And I liked the idea with the program, and then we're going to get into the psychology of it in a minute, but I liked the idea that I could be really nerdy and scientific about what worked and what didn't, so that I could like move little levers, like this part of this saying worked. I tried this one, man, it failed miserably. Okay, go back. Okay, we keep going on. And then one other thing that stuck out as I've been doing this and doing it, and now I've been full-time since 19, just helping people get the Sandler methodology, was that a lot of times we'll crash and burn somewhere, but our mistake really wasn't made there. Our mistake was made in the setup. And so lots of times people go, I just didn't say that word right. You know what? Maybe tone or pace or how you presented the information that you wanted to get to that point was really where the accident happened. And so I watch a lot of film now. I help big companies. Have you ever heard of Adobe? That's one of the companies that
once or twice.
A couple of times, right? So I sit down with their salespeople, and they'll send me a video of their discovery call and their demo, and they're like, "Oh, our demo crashed. It wasn't what we wanted to." And I'm like, "Well, all right, send me the demo, but to really understand why the demo was bad, I need to go the step before. So you send me your discovery call, and then we'll go over that together, and we'll break it down and timestamp it and really go over it." And they've been like, oh my goodness, I didn't even see that. I didn't even notice that I was trying to fix what I thought was important, not what they thought was important. And so the psychology of how we get to that. So I thought today, I was looking at some of your YouTube videos you've done and your such, and a couple of them were on like how you do your cold call process.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of has this style. And so I wanted to sort of talk psychology of your first meeting, whether it's my first meeting is I'm calling good lists or bad lists, right? They're just lists.
Yep.
Right. So
list of names.
Yeah. I mean, like, hey, I bought the leads. What did I make of them? Why some work, why some don't. And look, part of it's a crapshoot. We get that. So, I mean, they just are what they are. But I think, and I work with people saying, hey, either I can buy more lists. So if you go to a baseball analogy, which I love, I can have more at bats to get the same response. Or if I got better at hitting, I only need 1,000 at bats instead of 5,000 at bats to get the same result.
Yeah.
And so wouldn't I rather get better and increase my batting average?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna share a little thing here, and then in the end, we're gonna put some information up. But if anyone wants a copy, like a PDF of what we're going over, I'm happy to send it to you. Because what we'll talk about is how to build something that doesn't get you stuck in jail when you first talk to somebody. Because it's happened to me. Somebody comes up and says, Al, what do you do? And before Sandler, I call that BS, right? Before Sandler. Because everything then was just BS, right? It was just before. But as I got better, I was able to have their eyes not glaze over and like, because everybody walks up to you and says, Christian, what do you do? And you're like, hey, well, you know what I really do is a multi-pronged approach, and their eyes kind of glaze over and they're just like, oh my gosh, what happened?
Why did I ask?
Yeah, that's super. Thanks. Check, please. Anyone else? Someone's got to have something I could do here. And so I was like, all right. I was a professional at getting people's eyes to glaze over and think, man, they're so interested in what I had to say. But the reality is I triggered something. So let's talk about what that trigger looks like and how that feels and that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to share my screen here with you. And all we're going to talk about is just the beginning of a conversation. There's a whole lot more that we get into, but let's just talk about the psychology of how we're going to establish a relationship, how we're going to begin this conversation, and how we're going to work together in that area. I started at the end. Well, I did begin with the end in mind. How do you like that, Christian? So, all right. So let's talk about psychological patterns, right? So let's begin in the nitty gritty. And Christian, I'm going to ask you these. When you get a call from a telemarketer, like you don't recognize the number and it's not somebody that you have put into your system, like how long does it take you to know it's a sales call?
I would say, depending on the call, I'd say on average, it'd probably be about 5 seconds with most of them.
Okay.
Maybe even less. Maybe it's even instantaneous. Sometimes, like if you get a call from someone and, they're being, kind of popped into a call center and you hear this boop, if anybody's ever gotten one of those calls, you pretty much know.
There's this pause and you hear noise in the background, but
yeah.
Okay.
So like in one of those, it's instant, but I'd say like on average, I'd say probably 5 seconds because of how they start the conversation normally.
Right. That leads to my next, like exactly what you said. How did they start the conversation? My favorite worst one, I don't know if there's such a thing as that, but my favorite one that's absolutely terrible is you just hear the guy take a big breath. He's like, "Hey, Christian, just called today to tell you about Medicare and want to let you know there's a lot of great things. And I know you're almost 65 years old." And you're just like, "Oh my gosh." I don't know if this guy's like a part-time like racehorse announcer or if what they're doing, but you're like, "Oh my goodness." So that we all have these telltale moments.
Yeah.
Right. And so we'll go along and we like, hey, we get that dead air. We pick it up. We're like, hello, dead air. Oh, okay. It's about to be a sales call. All right. So I want to know, tell me what your body does internally. And I'm going to use some sarcasm here. So please note this is sarcasm. When you hear that gap and all of a sudden it's like, oh, call center. Now I want to know, does every cell in your body just relax? Does it just go, oh, I'm so glad they called. I have been waiting for this call all day long. Does that happen to you?
No, I would say the opposite.
All right. Me too. Right. No, nobody's like, oh, I'm so glad this telemarketer called. This is the best. Or you're at some business meeting and you get cornered by a guy. And he's like, oh, hey, I haven't seen you forever. What do you do now? Oh my gosh. It happened to me at a softball game. Right. I'm like, oh, hey, Todd, what's up? Oh my gosh. Hey, I'm doing life insurance now. You and I should get together. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. How can I get out of this? Oh, I pulled a hamstring. Oh, I got to go to the doctor right now. I mean, it's just rough.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the psychological pattern that happens. When we get that and our body does not, that's why I joke about it, does not go to that place of like, oh, I'm so relaxed and open for information. This is fantastic. Right? It goes to that place that's just like, how do I get off of this? How do I do it?
Yep.
Well, here's the psychology. Your brain puts as much as it possibly can to autopilot. Your brain traditionally runs and thinks about things, new information, new areas, stuff like that. About 5% of your brain is thinking of new ideas, new thoughts, and it's turned over. How do I drive to work? What am I going to get at the store? I pull through McDonald's. What am I going to find? I go to this. We get these habits and patterns all the time. And so even if you think about the last time you went on a road trip, if you went somewhere new, it was much more mentally exhausting than the 4th or 5th or 10th time you would do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I would fly when you lived here, I would fly to California. I would buy some cars at the auto auction. I would drive up to Las Vegas. I would have the first few trips, man, I was whipped. The 300th trip, didn't even think about it. There's that rock. That's where a police hide. Yep, that sign. Yep, got that sign.
Mm-hmm.
My mind didn't have to think about it because it had placed everything into this autopilot form. So we have developed, and honestly, this is what I like to call, I want people to recognize, this is where you end up paying for the sins of salesmen past. Because we have developed patterns to get rid of that salesperson we didn't want to see, hear, or talk to in the past. And the moment we say something, the moment we have that gap before the guy in the call room answers, the more we get the gap with the guy who's just machine gunning you, the moment you answer, the quicker these people get to, I'm out.
Yeah.
And that's why blocks of leads, if we just call them up, Christian, hey, it's Big Al. Just really wanted to talk to you about some Medicare Advantage plans. I thought it'd be a great day. This is a great time. I'm happy. You happy? Should we do this? They're so locked out and they're just so automatically turned over their natural response. And I like to call those landmines. So I hate stepping on them. I hate stepping on landmines that were left by salespeople of the past. Have you had that happen where somebody just shut you down instantly?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, when I was early on in my career and I did cold call, we would cold call people 90 days out from their 65th birth month. And most of them had probably received 50 calls already from somebody prior in the months leading up to that. So it's just one of those things where, like, you're the 51st call. And it's very hard to overcome that.
Yeah. So how do we break a pattern? How do we break through and not sound like all the other white noise? And we psychologically, if we start to do the same white noise activities, we become lumped in with all those guys or gals or people that have done stuff to offend or annoy or frustrate or caught them at the wrong time and all that kind of stuff. So when we do that, people tend to tense up. They tend to get the hair on their back stands up. Now, here's some weird information I've been doing some research on. Your frontal lobe, it understands language. It understands words and how they connect. It's fast. It like operates at 42 meg per second, right? Like your brain is awesome. But your fight or flight, your things that have been turned over, because your frontal lobe is part of that 5% that thinks about things and goes through stuff. Your amygdala back in your head, deep in your head, handles fight, flight, get away from the scary monster, run away from fire. That does that part. It operates at 40 gig per second, whereas your thinking part's 42 meg. Your amygdala operates at 40 gig and instantly sends something. The moment you sound like scary monster, scary sales guy, whatever, it instantly sends that message to the body. And it's like, out, got to get out. How do I get out? And so I don't want to be that pattern.
Yeah.
I don't want to trip all those landmines. Now, does that mean everyone's going to talk to you? No, it doesn't. But if I'm playing the percentages, I can improve my batting average because I'm not going to trip over those things. So I want to teach you a new word today. It's actually an acronym, so I don't know how much of a word it is, right? And these are basically saying that in the state of fight or flight, they are not going to listen to us. They're going to reject what we had to say. They're not going to go, Christian, you have saved my life. I know I've had 50 other calls, but because you called, I think I'm going to do it. If we sound exactly the same, we're going to get the same response. So here is our new word of the day. Fudwucka. Right? And so how is Fudwucka going to change how we get to people and how we mentally allow them to let us have a conversation? So Fudwucka is an acronym, like I said, and it's just an easy way to remember frustrated, upset, disappointed, worried, angry, concerned, anxious. And I'll be honest, if you want to just kind of remember it, all of those are emotional words. So you don't have to use those exact ones. This is just an easy to remember example. But you could use fearful. You could use,
discouraged.
Worried. Yeah, discouraged. I mean, you can come up with anything you want. Yeah, thanks for filling it. You can come up with anything, but where does that apply? So let's apply that to here. So this is kind of the recipe. This is the plug and play that we can do on a phone call or a first meeting. So somebody might say, you could say to me, Al, what do you do? And You know what, Christian? I work with fantastic seniors, so I want to give them positive stroke. I work with fantastic seniors like you. And when they call me, I generally hear a few things. So, how is that different from your average introduction? Most introductions are, let me slam you with as many features and benefits as I can, as quickly as I can. Hey, it's free. It's this. It'll make your teeth shiny. It'll make your hair shiny. You're going to love it. You're going to act like you've seen the movie Cocoon and you're living it. No, right? What I want to do is say, I work with a lot of other people in your same area. And when they call me, which is like, this is the equal business stature moment, not like, hey, when I reach out to them and hound them and won't ever let their phone just be quiet. It's, hey, when they call me, I generally hear a few things. And you had shared with me a story about a customer of yours, a new customer of yours that had some want for dental help, but her plan didn't have it. And you were sitting down with her to talk about it. So if I would share that story in this way, using one of my Fuddwucker words, and I highlighted this because I want to be able to just put into this an emotion, fear, uncertainty, doubt, worried, anxiety, concerned, angry. And I would say, first, she was really frustrated that she did not have dental coverage. In fact, as we looked at her plan, we dug deeper and she wanted some dental work done. And the impact by not having it is that she may have to come out of pocket. And as we looked deeper, we were really able to see that if we just moved some things around and got her on the right plan, not only would she have dental, but it would be the same price as what she was paying before. We just made it the right plan for her. That allows people to see themselves in the story. You said something I thought was brilliant the other day. It was something about facts do what and stories do what?
Facts tell, stories sell.
That's right. And why do stories sell, Christian?
Stories sell because people automatically are going to be so much more likely to remember a story than a fact because it's interesting. It's more engaging. It's why people like to watch movies because it's a story, and so it's just so much easier for them to retain that information and remember it than it is just spouting off a bunch of facts.
Right. And I will tell you this, if you spout facts and you don't get their exact fact correctly, you're of no value to them. But if you tell a story, you can be in the neighborhood. You might tell the story about the lady who wanted dental care, but maybe they're not worried about that. Maybe they wanted silver sneakers. Maybe they wanted a better plan to help with their prescriptions. Maybe they wanted something else. And they go, well, I don't really need dental stuff because I got that covered. But do you do this as well? I've had issues there. So people see themselves within that story. And because you're telling it that way as a story, exactly what you said, they remember it. They remember how it made them feel. Because remember, our amygdala makes decisions fast. Yeah, oh my gosh, I felt that same frustration. I was on the wrong plan. Could you help me be on the right one? And even if your story isn't exact, they can most times see themselves within that play to make a move. So I would say what we would want to do, or what I encourage or coach people to do, is have 2 or 3 different stories. You don't have to share them all every time, but this is the recipe. And we're going to work on a different beginning as well. But okay, so problem 1, first, they're frustrated about. Tell the story about the lady who wanted some dental care with her Medicare plan. Problem 2, then I have some others that are really angry. And then you have a story where your people are angry. They really needed help with prescriptions, but they never looked to the fact that this one did not really cover those. So all prescriptions were out of pocket. And so then, they were very angry about that. As we looked at it, we were able to, it was a couple dollars more, but you know what? Now they didn't have to come out of pocket with these expensive prescriptions. And we would do the next one. I also hear I'm very concerned about whatever. You would have another story. So you should have 2 or 3 stories kind of ready to be able to break through that instead of, hey, Christian, let me tell you what, I can help you with dental products. Do you need help with dental products? I got a plan. It's a great plan. Did you want to get the dental plan on top of your Medicare supplement? And people are like, no, thanks. Click. Because you trip every single wire. But as you tell a story, you are no longer tripping the wire that says, I'm walking through the minefield and this is my best guess. I'm walking through a minefield and this is my best guess. And it's funny because you have a lot of customers. I think I was talking with your dad, you're 1,000 plus. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they're kind of in groups, but I think if you looked at it, they all had something really specific in particular that was of interest to them to fix or solve or help with.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think they all have their own pain points is the way I like to look at it, right? They all have things that are going to be pain points that need to be addressed in order to make them a client. So some people, it might be they need to be able to go to this hospital, but also this hospital at the same time. And they need a plan that accommodates that in the network. They might have certain prescriptions they need to take. Some might need dental care more than others. And so everybody has a unique set of needs.
Exactly. And the interesting part is the non-professional or the person who's not developed their skill set yet won't take time to find out what those are.
Right.
They'll come over with a prescription. Here's the top three. Are you a top three person? And, I haven't met many that exactly fit. And sadly, if you don't hit, and people don't think about this, but if you don't hit those exact marks, the way they have them formulated in their head, if you're just doing straight features and benefits with no understanding of what their problems are, if you don't hit it, you become everybody else and you just add on to the sins of the people past and they just shut off and it's over. And you're like, what happened? I don't know why that happened. I'm not sure. So I play a game with groups I train, right? I went into a group with 12 people and I said, I will Venmo $100 to whoever gets this right. And I'll do it right now. And so, Christian, if you were to move levers this way, that way, how many different supplement options do you have? How many different Medicare plans do you have? By changing a little thing here, I need more dental. Do you think 500? Do you think 1,000? By the time you modify all this stuff, what do you think you have?
That's a great question. I mean, the combinations are certainly going to be a lot. I think like with some kind of products, it's more customizable where like we can give them a different supplement than their drug plan or dental plan. With others, if we did something like a Medicare Advantage plan, it's all together. They're going to get everything in one plan. I'm not really sure, but I know it'd be a lot.
So like 100, 200?
Yeah, let's say 100. Let's say 100.
So I generally do like 500, but I'm like, I'll pick three numbers. I'm going to write it down on my piece of paper. And I say, anyone who can guess all three numbers wins. Let's do this. I haven't had anyone guess one number right yet. But the moral of the story is if we go in as a salesperson and we think, oh, we're so good at this, let me just tell you the top three, you're going to love it. We're really mistaken. And we're really not spending the time to let them tell us exactly what you said, what they're having an issue with, what they're having a problem with, what concerns them. And that's why FledWalk is so strong. Are they frustrated about something? Are they angry with something? Are they concerned? Right? Because if I just go out and go, hey, what are your pain points? Tell me what's going on. They're going to look at me like a little bizarre. So I'm kind of having FledWalk helps me have a little bit more softened version of pain points. And so now I have a group of 8 words. And if I'm a professional, I can make a group of 10 words or 12 words that I'm just comfortable using. So let's take a peek at another one. Hey, we meet at the grocery store. You can tell I'm old. I got the white beard going on. I'm just about to hit that age. Fortunately, I'm still a few years away. But I'll say, hey, Christian, instead of me telling you why you should work with me, why don't I tell you why other people have chosen to work with me? Is that okay?
Yeah.
And I'll have a softer way. And all of a sudden their brains are open. Oh, yeah. Why do other people work with you? Because if I stick to, let me tell you why you should work with me, look, I'm really funny. I'm great with off balance, one-footed flip-flop basketball shots. I'm the guy you want to be with, right? Again, if my reasons for them to work with me don't hit, then I'm out. And so I want to ask questions in a way that say, let me tell you some stories. And if you can see yourself in the part, and I want to tell you there's 5 magic words after all of this that we'll get to. But we do this. Why don't I tell you why other people choose to work with me? First, they're anxious about. Then I hear they're disappointed at a story. I also hear Christian. Now, if you want to personalize it, right? Because once again, people are reaching out to you. Instead of just like, well, they told me this, they tell me that. I can throw in occasionally, man, then I also hear like, Christian, I'm really worried that if I have to go to the dentist, I'm out of luck. And when they start to tell you their stories, or when you start to share with them and you say, I don't know if any of those stick out to you. You may not be having any of these issues at all. People will generally say, no, I have that one. And that leads you to the 5 best words on the planet. You ready to write this down, Christian? Tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of these things are designed to get to the point where they say, tell me more about that. And this is where you have gotten better at saying, hey, help me understand what you have. What's going on? Tell me how you feel about that. I thought your story about the lady that the dentist said she needs your help, where you could just ask her. In fact, almost discouraged her not to go with you, but she's like, nope, I'm out with my current guy. It just isn't going to work. But I liked how you asked questions. Well, tell me what's important to you. Tell me what you've seen so far. What are you concerned about? What are you worried about? And if we remember those Fuddrucker words to ask us, to remember to ask, well, tell me what's worrying you. Help me understand some more about that. There's a whole path that we can go down to just ask questions. What have you done so far? Let me understand. Can you give me a more specific example? So you tried that. How did this work out? And then by using tone, right? Tone's a huge deal. A lot of times salespeople come in hot and they're like, I'm so excited to be here. And they're not matching their customer. So you just have to match your tone a little bit and say, Christian, tell me some more about that. Why was the dentist such a frustration for you? Oh my goodness. And so what have you done so far? And we can lead through a whole conversation. We can do that another day. But I want to give you some just options to say, what are your pain points without using pain points? That's why Fuddrucker, fear, uncertainty, doubt, anxious, angry, disappointed, worried, all that kind of stuff, to allow us to go, oh, I have other ways to say, what's your fears? And if we base it on the premise of stories, so you're exactly right. Facts tell. That's great. At one point, you go over the brochure and it tells them. But the stories about how other people have done this is what changes humans.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to connect. And then suddenly, when we talk to them or reach out to them or with them on the phone, we're not tripping all those same fears, all those same emotions, all those same triggers or landmines that other people have left behind. We don't even have to be there. So if we look at the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, I don't know if you've read it, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's back here somewhere on one of these.
Yeah, no, I've got it on my shelf as well. And I love the fact that the supreme, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but it's the premise. The supreme art of war is to subdue your enemy without ever having a fight.
Mm.
And if we can think about that, if I choose to go at it like every other person, and I want to fight you, and I want to prove to you I'm better than the other guy, and I want to prove to you on this, then we've opted to jump in. But if we go to the supreme art of war, we would not even approach those things. Why would I? And so I had a guy I really like, and he said this to me. He was a retired Marine. He said, conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So things are going to happen. So if I look at sales like it's a combat experience, that's my fault. Right. So if I say,
Yeah.
if I'm really going to master what I do, and I'm really going to psychologically master my moment, I'm going to think ahead and say, how would I avoid that? How would I avoid being like, Christian, let me tell you what I do. I do this great, and I'm great at this. I'm great at that. I train people, they get better, make lots of money. You want to do it? You're probably not going to get it. You're probably going to look at me and say, hey, thanks for that speech. But if I can tell you, hey, I worked with some people that were really anxious. They made a lot of phone calls, but they just didn't feel like they were getting any traction. So they'd call 1,000, they'd land 2, and they're like, man, I guess that's just how it is. You might be in a spot where you're still making cold calls and say, wow, you know what? I've had that same feeling and I hated it. How could I get better at it so I could make less phone calls but have more traction? And it really does change the scenario, so that as we look at it from a smarter point of view, we base it on them. We base it on what they need. It's not based on the top things I want to tell them, because I don't even know. I want to find out. And this is my way to let me into their conversation and their mindset. Oh, you've got an issue. You've heard something like that. Well, tell me more about your story. And people will say, well, I'm sure I'm just like everyone else. And I'm honest with them. Like, I don't know that. So the only way I can know is to really dig deeper. Is it okay if I ask you some questions? You can ask me some for sure, but let's ask some questions so that I can know what really is the most important thing for you. And let's work on that. And that's a changer. That's a game changer between people that are actually having a conversation. I've really enjoyed Sandler because it gets through the fluff and the crap and in the cheesy one-liners, right? To the point of, you'll notice I just need to understand what their worries are. I need to understand what they don't think they're getting or getting right, or what they wish they had. If you had a magic wand, what would you change? Oh, let me understand some more about that. What is it I could do to make that happen? And so I want to get to the bottom of what they need. And I've found this is such a good way to get there, to allow us into their heads and have a real conversation, instead of that conversation that their body's just repelling anything we have to say, because we tripped over these landmines and just said the wrong thing. We hit a tripwire, we set off a bomb. I don't even want to approach that.
I think it's so important and so valuable, kind of what you shared with us today, because so many people go through their everyday lives having, I would say most salespeople are bad salespeople. Like, they're not good at it. Say the majority of them, in my opinion. And so I think if you talk to a potential client that is in the market for what you're offering, and they've spoken to anyone prior, they probably have gotten everything that you just mentioned in terms of what not to do, and they've kind of gotten in their own way. So then when you talk to them in a way that's more just kind of addressing their needs and asking the right questions and laying things out in a perspective of examples and stories, it's going to be very unique, and you're going to stand out, right, above all those other people they've talked to.
And their friends will remember why they signed up with you. And they'll probably tell those stories to all the friends they play games with, or go to the movies with, or go to dinner with.
Yeah.
Instead of like, hey, let me show you this brochure I got today. This brochure is awesome. They'll probably remember that Christian sat down and he said, I just want to see how you are. They'll be like, man, he listened to me. How often does that happen in the sales process, where somebody goes away feeling like they really listened? And I mean, that's part of what we do too, right? We start with bonding and rapport, the very first place of any conversation. How do we listen to them? And if you look at Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, one of them is listening to understand. But how often, you're right, they run into guys that don't care about that. I don't need that. I just I need some sizzle. I got some sizzle on the grill. You want to come get some? And it just is so interesting. Like, we don't know, but the forever clients feel heard.
Yeah.
And the forever clients are like, that guy got me, or that gal got me. Man, they knew what I needed right there. They spoke to me. And your story probably didn't match perfectly, but it had enough that they were like, oh, I should open up and share more with Christian.
Yeah. This was great, Al. Thank you for taking some time today and kind of going through this with us and sharing this with the audience. I think it's super helpful. I think it's super necessary today. I think I think as time goes on, I think as I talked about a little bit at the beginning of this, I feel like there's less emphasis on sales and salesmanship and the proper way to do it. And I think it's definitely hurting people. I know in our space, I see it all the time, where it's like, okay, well, you got a nice website, you got a marketing, thing down, and, you got a honey hole in terms of a marketing scheme or whatever you're doing, but you can't close anybody because you don't know how to sell. And so I think it's just super needed. I wanted to ask you one last question while we have you, and that is, where is the best place for people to connect with you? And of course, if anybody wants to connect with Al, if you want to schedule a free consultation, I believe 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
We're going to throw all those links to his LinkedIn. We're going to throw, I don't, tell me if you're not comfortable with this, but we'll throw his email down in the description. We'll put a multitude of different ways you can get in touch with Al down in the description if you want to learn more.
Yeah, that'd be great. And you can reach me on LinkedIn. I think Christian's got that. And there's a link to schedule an appointment. And I can't remember if it's 15 or 30 minutes, but happy to do it. And look, I may not be able to help. And if I can't, at least I could direct you somewhere. But at least we could find out what you actually want to have a hand with. And I have some stuff, a free assessment we do, like takes 8 to 12 minutes. So if somebody reached out, emailed, whatever, I could give you that. And you could kind of do a little self-guided tour. Like, yeah, I don't really have a problem with this, but boy, I really struggle here. Do I know my process? Do I know what I would say next? How do I close? I get them all the way to this part and then I don't close, like you just said. So we have a way to kind of just understand. And I only want to work on stuff that you think is of need. I'm not going to go there and say, Christian, I need you to work on slam dunks, because you're like, well, I probably don't jump that high anymore, so I can't slam dunk.
Or never did
on an outside shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and I really appreciate you having me. I've enjoyed watching your other ones, and obviously great to have a friendship. But why people interact with you is so interesting. And I will say this, it works everywhere. It doesn't just work in a sales environment. It helps me with my kids. It helps me get them to bed. It helps me to get them to take a bath. It helps me get them to learn how to communicate with them better.
Yeah.
And okay, I didn't say that right because I get it wrong. But how can I be better at helping my wife understand she means a lot to me? And if I were to present the information one way, I'd get a frying pan to the head. But if I presented the same information better, she might say that was the nicest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And the reality is we sell everywhere. We sell people on why we have these ideas or what we should do. So why not get better at communicating it?
I love it. Makes me think of a book, one of my favorite books. It's on this shelf, I think, called Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. And it outlines that just so well, that exact topic about how everything in life is a sale. Everything in life is communicating. It's presenting your point on something, whatever it is. It's getting someone to go out with you. It's like you said, trying to get your kids to do what you need them to do, and you do their homework and go to bed on time. And I have a 4-year-old, so that's the not quite a 4-year-old, almost 4. It's the most difficult sale I make every day in my life, is trying to get her to do something. It's time for bed. Hey, I need you to stay in bed and not jump on the bed and scream, no more monkeys jumping on the bed, So yeah. I think it's so true.
Yeah. And it's, what we talked about today, honestly, was the tip of the iceberg. There are so many things to put it together, but I know this one will spark thoughts Like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And there's a whole way to connect it start to finish. And this is just a little tiny bit of the start. But I really enjoy it. I enjoy nerding out on the process and how and why and helping people put it together. For me, that's the payoff.
Well, I love it. Thank you again for doing this. This was super valuable. I don't take it for granted, and we appreciate your time. And guys, reach out to Al if you want to know more about Sandler and kind of what they can do to kind of help your process, and working with Al directly. Like I said, links will be in the description. More information will be found in the description of this video. And of course, if you like the video, like always, make sure to like the video, comment your thoughts down below, subscribe, so that way we reach more people like you who need to hear this information. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.